Legends. The podcast about urban legends. Meet your host, that's right. Neil Chris Hunter. Hello and welcome to this episode of Urban Legends, the ultimate podcast about urban legends. I am Charles Dickens' character, Pippin Picklewaite, and with me today is local window cleaner
Neil Herbert. Oh, what larks, Pip.
Thanks, Gov. How you doing, Neil? How's the window cleaning game?
Butt bracket.
Yeah.
Butt bracket.
Are you a reach and watch man, or are you still on the ladders with the bucket and chamois?
Well, I thought, unfortunately, we've got to, due to bloody Brussels getting involved in our business, we had to start, couldn't get up on the ladders no more, and I thought we were going to, we're going to get back
the whole
to
industry.
Just climbing up like a chimpanzee up there, a gorilla, just climbing up the outside of the building with a chamois leather, a bucket. Yeah, what's wrong with that?
Nothing wrong with that. Well, so you're allowed to do that now? Don't even need the ladders?
No, still haven't changed the laws. I've still got to buy these overpriced hoses from
bloody hell.
Some European factory.
Sooner we untangle ourselves from them, the better. The horror. So is it like the 70s films Confessions of a Window Cleaner? Do you get your leg under?
There's a lot of similarities, as you can imagine. Yeah. You'll see some things when you're clambering up the outside of a building.
Do you often have to hide under beds or in wardrobes when a husband unexpectedly comes home?
Well, there's that, and there's a lot more,
peeping toms,
swanny whistles than you'd imagine in your everyday life.
Sounds like a decent job.
Apparently, the swanny whistles are diegetic, or whatever they call them. Whatever that phrase is. Someone on the ground will just see you and then just pull out a swanny whistle and just, if you see something a bit saucy.
Well, they're good. I believe that they were banned during our imprisonment by the EU as well, weren't they? Swanny whistles.
Absolutely, yeah.
So hopefully...
Some ill-founded rumour that they were made out of bits of swan.
Yeah, which were owned by the Queen anyway, so
exactly, so you can
fuck off, Brussels. Very much like the Swiss version of having an army, because they don't have a standing army. What they do is they give every man over a certain age a rifle and like 12 bullets or something, and everyone has to you have to keep it in like a lockbox at your house in case they're invaded. That's what they have instead of an army. I'm hoping that in the UK every man will be given a swanny whistle, so that we can get back to basics.
Something occurs that needs to be, hilariously pointed out.
They are very good for that, though. They are very, I love a swanny whistle.
Well, I think maybe its most famous implementation was that, not enough James Bond movies have a swanny whistle now. I think you remember that classic stunt in which one was it? Obviously, it was one of the Roger Moore ones.
Roger Moore. Yeah.
Oh God, what's the? I can't even remember what the movie was called now. But it's the one with the fat sheriff. No, it's one or two before.
Oh, that's Live and Let Die.
It might be Live and Let Die. Actually, I can't.
It is. Yeah, because that's down in the. Bayous.
He was in two of them. Yeah, that must be
the fat sheriff.
Yeah, there's this bit.
He was in View to a Kill or something as well, wasn't he? He went, "Hey, you're the secret agent guy." Yeah.
Yeah, he's on he was out in Thailand on holiday or something. Some kid was trying to sell him
for unspecified reasons.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think they didn't get into that. But yeah, no, he just does that car jump and then it sort of like does like a twist and then lands on the next bit.
That's Live and Let Die.
The best way to orchestrate that amazing stunt was to use a swanny whistle. Imagine being the stuntman on that, and you're like, you've just nailed this, and you almost died. Yeah. So also, I assume there's going to be like a massive orchestral swell then, yeah? Like timpani, just like going off. Yeah, we thought we'd go with a swanny whistle. It's the 70s, it's all a bit wacky.
The good thing about a swanny whistle is it can produce the sound of saucy surprise or disappointment. And, and especially if you have it with...
it's ascending or descending, yeah.
You have it with something like wilting, like a flower, like... Something like that.
If I recall correctly, the scene in question, they use both the ascending and the descending, so very unusual use of both tropes of the Swanee Whistle.
Wow, I would say it was they were years ahead of their time, weren't they? Using it for serious stunts rather than saucy.
I'll say this for the Swanee Whistle,
rather than the sound effect metaphor of a penis becoming erect and unerect, which is what it's used for in every other circumstance.
Yeah, that's what I say for the Swanee Whistle. It's evocative in the right context, but rather limited in its application. So, but hey, I do want to see. I've not seen the last Bond movie yet, so I'm hoping there's going to be a bit of Swanee Whistle in there.
I'd hope so.
I suspect not, but you never know. They might.
Hopefully, when they get Idris Elba in, he'll insist on it.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't argue with Idris, would you?
No.
It'd be a good call as well.
Talking about Swanee whistles and phallic interpretations of things, Neil, this week we're looking at the legend of the Mongolian Death Worm.
He's this mysterious little fella.
Yeah, right. So I'm going to read a little bit. Do you know what? I'm not going to use Wikipedia this time because there's a lot about it. Yeah. So I'm going to read from livescience.com, which puts me on edge because of, science. I feel like they're going to be disparaging. But it's by a little fella called Benjamin Radford. So let's see where he goes. Yeah, he's delightful, isn't he? Dancing around with his little cymbals. So, it sounds like a fantastic, lethal creature that may be found in a 1950s pulp science fiction novel, brackets, or sci-fi television movie, close brackets. Didn't need to put that in. More, he's delightful, isn't he?
Referencing June, yeah.
With his little tap shoes.
He's like the jangle skittering up and down those stairs.
Some people believe that this large, deadly worm-like creature called the Mongolian Death Worm exists in the Gobi Desert. My second favourite desert.
Really? What's your top desert?
Sahara, isn't it?
Yeah,
classic. You can't beat the classics.
Can't beat them. Yeah, come on.
It's got all the dunes and that. That's what we all think of. According to British biologist Carl Schucker, that's weird, he's got the same surname as Tupac. In his book, maybe it is Tupac. Maybe he didn't die and he became
a
British biologist
instead. Yeah.
According to Tupac Shakur, in his book, The Unexplained and Illustrated Guide to the World's Most Paranormal Mysteries, 2002 Metro Books, one of the world's most sensational creatures may be concealed amid the stands of the southern Gobi Desert. It's said to resemble a large fat worm up to 1 meter, 3 foot long, and dark red in colour, with spike-like projections at both ends. Spends much of its time hidden beneath the desert sands, but whenever one is spotted lying on the surface, it is scrupulously avoided by the locals. So, first things first. Doesn't sound that big. A meter.
No, when you mentioned the Mongolian Death Worm,
I thought it was going to be
some pictures.
Tremors.
I was exactly. I was very much picturing the graboids from Tremors, sort of like something 50 foot long.
Yeah.
Sandworms from June.
But does this make it more realistic? The fact that it's not bombastic.
Well, that's true. Yeah. If it was big enough for Paul Atreides to hitch a ride, it's probably you would have spotted it a bit more often.
If it was the size of, say,
New York.
London Underground, if it was the size of, say, Mars.
Yeah, it would interfere gravitationally with the rest of the planet. So that feels intrinsically unrealistic.
Or is it? Or maybe a vortex is counterbalancing it.
Yeah.
It's an eldritch god.
Yeah.
So, according to the legend, the dreaded Mongolian death worm, which local people call, and here we go, Olgoi, Korkoi, or loosely translated, large intestine worm.
Is that local death worm? Translated
local intestine worm. So,
okay.
their frame of reference for worms is intestinal worms. Lovely. It has lived up to its name. It can kill in several fearsome ways, Neil. Would you like to guess some of these ways?
And
remember, it can't handle a gun.
Oh, right, okay. That's
got you stumped.
Can it call down a really localised nuclear strike like in Civ 4? Only like 4 squares of the map it can.
That's not one of the ones. It's
spent 6 hours waiting to drop one on Gandhi because he kept nagging at me. So wait, just after I've invented rock and roll, you're getting a nuclear bomb. Wow,
one comes after the other.
Yeah.
No. So its ways of killing include.
Wait, let me guess some other ones then. Okay, so it's not nuclear weaponry.
Not a nuclear weaponry based on the mechanic, the learning tree mechanics of Civ 4. Yeah. No.
Can it spit poison in your eye?
Something like that.
Ooh,
so
okay.
it can spit
a stream. Is it, so it couldn't swallow you?
Well, don't know. Apparently the locos can, and they're only little, aren't they?
Yeah. Just to stand their jaw.
Got to remember, it's a worm, so it's got no bones.
Yeah.
It's not. It's not. As I constantly curse to the gods about being restricted by having a skeleton, it doesn't have that restriction.
Cage. Yeah.
Lucky bastard. So it spits a stream of corrosive venom that is lethal to anything it hits. And if that doesn't do the trick, it's said to be able to electrocute victims from a distance.
Oh, good. It's got some steel action going on as well. Oh, you can electrocute from a distance. You can shoot lightning at you like a Lord of Thunder.
Yeah.
What's up, Raiden? Like Thor.
Yeah.
They did that Loki series. I don't know if you saw it, but there was like loads of different versions of Loki, like an alligator Loki. So this sounds like do you reckon this is like a worm Thor?
Maybe. But I think this legend's older.
The worm god of thunder.
Than the 2021 series Loki on Marvel TV.
The recent Marvel series, yeah. Fair enough.
Rarely seen and never photographed. It's pretty. It's not a heavily populated area, the Mongolian plateau and the Gobi Desert, is it? And they also are nomadic.
Yeah, I'm assuming around that area it's nomadic. I mean, there's not all of Mongolia, presumably, is.
All of it is.
Is it? All of the people
even the capital cities, like on legs, like some sort of steampunk thing.
Oh, right. Yeah, like a game I played once where they walk around. Yeah, it's convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
Steampunk for you, Chris. You know my feelings about steampunk.
You love it as much as I do.
Over-engineered nonsense.
No, I think.
Imagine the maintenance.
Well, there's a lot of maintenance with everything, isn't there?
Well, imagine if it was a building that had legs and they could walk to places. Wouldn't need to go around so much then, would you? Be good to just come to you.
Well, how do you decide where to go? It doesn't matter. Well, I mean, there is an argument to be said, would you use more coal and, more engineering in having a walking city than you would having a city where everyone individually had to heat their homes in the winter. Whereas if you just follow the temperate weather, you don't have to have every house have an individual heating element. So what uses more, Neil? What uses more?
They could be solar powered then as well. So there you go.
That's not steampunk!
Oh, right, yeah, sorry. Got to have a little chimney, isn't it?
I have a little chimney.
And a little railway.
Toot, toot. Little magnifying glass.
Skellington riding the railway. With some goggles on his top hat.
Exactly. Got to, have replacement limbs with, monkey wrenches, steam-powered monkey wrench, something like that.
So, thumb.
Huh?
A fork in place of a thumb.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Basically, Inspector Gadget, but with a chimney.
But shitter. That's saying something.
So, but, it electrocutes its victims from a distance. So that's
That's hardcore. I like that.
That's pretty hardcore. So, rarely seen and never photographed, it was mentioned in the 1926 book by paleontologist Roy Chapman Andrews, who didn't believe in existence but noted the stories of it circulated in Mongolia. Okay, this bit's called Seeking the Death Worm.
Nice.
Despite, or perhaps because of, the creature's fearsome name, they don't call it the Mongolian happiness worm after all. Don't start. Look, just Benjamin. He's
just having a bit of fun. No,
but he should stick to his, his little organ.
He's just a little pirouette. It was gorgeous.
His little accordion that he dances with.
He's on his head
little hat on. Many intrepid explorers have set out into the Gobi Desert seeking the beast. Numerous organised expeditions and searches have been made over the years by both independent researchers and in conjunction with television shows. Despite
So, hang on a second, Chris. You say independent researchers. Do you mean that no august bodies of science have funded these expeditions?
Yeah, but, that doesn't mean anything, does it?
No.
What does that mean?
Going for the mainstream stuff, aren't they?
Oh, it's boring.
Yeah. Cancer and all that.
Yeah, but,
let's go and find a Mongolian death worm.
Yeah, but they're not into cryptozoology, are they? Because essentially they have to be
all fake.
Because their funds have to be auditable to their donors. They can't go, we went to go and look for the chupacabra. It costs
like jolly.
It costs $150,000. You can't do that.
Yeah.
You independently fund it. And the good thing about independently researching it as well is you don't have all that politicking going on.
No, exactly.
People trying to get tenure.
Needing to provide evidence and stuff.
People trying to get into, alpha, gamma, omega, or whatever.
It's just ego, isn't it? Locker room stuff.
It's all locker room stuff. Slapping each other's asses, whatever. So despite the extensive searches, eyewitness interviews, and even setting traps for the beast, all have come back empty-handed. Many of those who believe in the creature's existence, acknowledge that there's no hard evidence, but instead believe that the legends and the stories of them must have some basis in historical truth. The descriptions, mostly second and third-hand stories from different places and times, are too similar, they believe, to be anything but independent eyewitness reports. Eye in the sky. From a folkloric perspective, however, this is simply a sign that legends and stories of a death worm may have spread through the region, as commonly happens through trade and travel. Many people around the world can offer very similar descriptions of dragons, leprechauns, mermaids, and other fantastic, presumably non-existent creatures. Sorry, where around the world...
leprechauns don't exist?
Well, yeah, there's that.
I'm not having that.
And
there's movie proof with Warwick Davis.
And to be fair, that's disrespectful to a group of people who are very well respected in the Republic of Ireland, the leprechaun.
Certainly.
Had
to fight hard for their rights to the leprechaun community.
So many people around the world can offer similar descriptions of leprechauns. Where else are there leprechauns?
I think that is very much endemic to Ireland.
It's a very much one place in the world that they say it.
Dragons are all over, in fairness.
Yeah, dragons, fine, because they find dinosaur bones everywhere. Dragons probably exist. And other fantastic, presumably non-existent creatures, not from personal experience, but from hearing about them from others. So, is there a real animal behind the stories and legends? It seems doubtful. Compared to the North American Bigfoot or the Himalayan Yeti, for which there are dozens or hundreds of alleged footprints, photographs, for example, there's virtually no evidence of its existence. Yeah, but again...
It's in the Gobi Desert.
And it lives underground.
Tracks, is it? Yeah.
This guy...
Oh, what's he like?
He should stick...
You want a footprint?
He should stick to doing his little diving act off that little, 10-foot high diving board that he does into the wash tub.
That's good, that.
It's good, isn't it? He comes out with all his fur wet.
Yeah.
Considering shaking it off. Considering also that no live or dead ones have been found, every other creature known to exist has left behind a dead body or a skeleton. But again, it's a worm, so it doesn't have a skeleton.
They've only found one dead Bigfoot, and it was in two Grifter's freezer. That wasn't terribly.
Which was,
we've talked about this before.
Yeah, which was just.
It wasn't terribly convincing.
It was a bear with a mask on.
Yeah.
In fact, the Gobi would likely preserve carcasses of the animal due to the relative lack of predators.
Harder than it looks.
And hot desert winds that slow decomposition. But again, it's a worm.
Maybe it can change into different creatures.
Maybe.
I thought of that.
Well, I mean, the thing is, I'm fair enough. You're sceptical, but I mean, the things that he's being sceptical about are things that could easily be explained away. So he's not doing his case any justice. So inhabitants of the Gobi, and I mean, how long do you think, in a desert with hot winds and, even if you don't have loads of predators around, like dogs or whatever, there are still predators, birds and stuff. And also, I mean, how long do you think it would take a worm to decompose? A couple of days? It's a huge desert. Inhabitants of the Gobi are aware of the global interest in their mystery monster, as well as offer rich rewards for one of the creatures, live or dead, and if one was found, it would surely come to light. Well, they're not capitalists. They're not they're nomads.
I'm not sure there is a great demand for a dead Mongolian Death Worm either, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
it's a very lucrative industry. What are you going to do with it? Unless it turns out it makes oil or something. Then we'll go and invade Mongolia on a spurious pretext.
Bomb them out of existence.
And you've got to free the death worms.
Legends and evidence, Neil. A zoological perspective may help us to sort fact from fiction in the legend of the Mongolian Death Worm. First of all, we should not be misled by the worm in its name. That's an English translation, guy. The creature, if it exists in the inhospitable Gobi Desert, could not be a soft, fleshy worm. Instead, it's likely to be a type of snake or legless lizard. He's basing this on nothing. This also means it would be a vertebrate animal with a spine that would presumably be found by searchers. He's just backfilling stuff. He's got no evidence for any of this.
Well, maybe it's based on the local animals. I don't know. Maybe that's what you would need to be able to glide through the sand.
A variety of explanations have been offered for the animal, including perhaps misidentification of a new species of snake. Snake that can shoot lightning? Don't think so, mate. The consensus amongst researchers such as Tupac Shakur and author Richard Freeman is that the Mongolian death worm likely does not exist, and belief in it is instead based upon sightings of either a type of limbless reptile known as a worm lizard, which resembles a large worm, burrows underground and can reach several feet in length, or a type of sand boa snake.
Well, Tupac Shakur says it, and I'm.
Oh, yeah, if he says it. Of course, not all the characteristics of the worm, lizard, or sand boa are a perfect match for the death worm. For example, terrestrial snakes can't deliver lethal electric shocks the way that electric eels, which are actually fish, not eel, for example, can. But what? Electric eels, which are actually fish, not eels. But eels are a type of fish. This he's getting a muddle here. Eels are a type of fish. For that matter, several venomous snakes, primarily cobras and vipers, can spit poison which, although not acidic, can certainly cause harm and blindness. Yet these reputed characteristics are based not on hard data but myths and stories. Some accounts of the death worm even claim that its venomous spittle can corrode metal instantly, which is physically impossible. With allowances made for the exaggerations found in rumour, legend and folklore, the worm, lizard or sand snake seems a likely candidate. It's of course possible that the Mongolian death worm exists. Of course, there would have to be more than one of them to say what biologists call a breeding population, likely tens or hundreds of thousands of them. Perhaps next week, next month, or next year, such a bizarre creature will be found and examined by scientists. Until then, it seems likely that Roy Chapman Andrews' assessment nearly a century ago was correct. The creature's merely a legend.
Maybe.
Oh, here we go. Benjamin Radford is deputy editor of the Skeptical Inquirer science magazine. He's the bad science columnist for Live Science. So he's come in there with an attitude.
Yeah.
Not one I like either.
Mind.
He's got a closed mind. He's bigoted against Mongolian death worms. So what are you thinking so far, Neil?
I think he's working for Uzbekistan harbin fish industry.
So we've got some more stuff here. So we've got one on cryptids.fandom.com, which is, to be fair, a much more even-handed
this is always
resource.
The thing with cryptozoology, isn't it? Is because,
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but you don't know. Some, as that wise man said in Harry and the Hendersons, have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
Yes.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Pigeons. My mum had some pigeons.
Him because that was his big thing. He's like, have you know that they exist?
What, baby pigeons?
Well, because pigeons exist, and therefore you'd have to obviously.
No, but I mean, but that's a really weird. I mean, pigeons.
Either Harry and the Hendersons, one of those films. Somebody could go, nobody's ever seen it yet. Have you ever seen a baby pigeon?
Yes. Pigeons nested on my mum's balcony. I haven't seen a baby pigeon, but people have seen baby pigeons. Yeah, they nested on my mum's balcony and they hatched some baby pigeons.
Look, it wasn't a great argument.
So, cryptids. So let's see what they've got to say. So the Mongolian death worm, native name Olgoi Kurokoi, which means intestine worm due to its red blood-like colour and size, which is the size of an intestine. It has been described by many to be between 2 and 7 feet long, to have the ability to spit out corrosive yellow saliva, and to generate blasts of electricity. We know all this. However, the latter power is thought of as being folkloric by the nomads of the Gobi. Western culture comes to call it the Mongolian death worm. So it's believed to be a giant worm, and it covers its prey with an acidic substance that turns everything a corroded yellow colour. And then the legend says that the creature begins to attack. It raises half of its body out of the sand and starts to inflate. What? Oh, okay. Until it starts to inflate until it explodes. What? So I've got to go through. Mongolian nomads believe that the giant worm covers its prey with an acidic substance that turns everything a corroded yellow colour. Legends say that as the creature begins to attack, it raises half its body out of the sand and starts to inflate until it explodes, releasing the lethal poison all over its unfortunate victim. The poison is so venomous that the prey dies instantly. Livestock and humans are supposed to be its main prey.
It's an inefficient way of hunting, I would say. Using yourself as the...
suicide bomb.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe if one of them does, the rest of the pack can feed afterwards.
Maybe. Because Mongolia had been under Soviet control until 1990, very little was known about the death worm in the West. In recent years, investigators have been able to look for evidence of the creature's existence. Ivan Makiri, I think it's just Ivan Makel, one of the leading Loch Ness monster detectives. Oh, well, there's just sign of quality. Yeah. Studied the region and interviewed many Mongolian people about.
Sorry, no, we've got to pause. No, sorry, Chris, we've got to pause there. I've got to know what differentiates a leading Nessie hunter from a crap Nessie hunter.
I think it would be.
Neither of them have found Nessie, and they know where to look in the Loch Ness.
But I think it would be someone who can afford to spend more time doing it.
Yeah,
perhaps is better at grifting investment.
I'm sceptical about that.
So, due to the sheer volume of sightings and strange deaths, he came to the conclusion, unsurprisingly, that it was more than just a legend. Nobody is entirely sure what the worm is. Experts are certain it's not a real worm because the Gobi Desert is too hard. Not too hard. It's too hot an area for an annelid to survive. Some have suggested it might be gink, but they have little legs and scaly skin, whereas witness accounts specify the worm is limbless and smooth-bodied. The most probable explanation is that the death worm is a new species of Amphibanaea, or worm lizard, a group of burrowing reptiles. Although native Mongolian people are convinced of the death worm's nature, it will take many more years of research to satisfy the rest of the world's scientific community. In 2005, an expedition from the Centre of 14 Zoology crossed 1,000 miles of Gobi on the track of a death worm. They concluded it was probably a large unknown type of worm lizard, and the powers attributed to it were apocryphal. So, in entertainment, the main antagonists in the Tremors series, called Graboids, were based upon the death worm.
Really?
There you go, yeah. The death worm did make an appearance on Lost Tapes when a pack of death worm attacked a couple of ATV riders who were stranded in the Mongolian desert. In the 2010 sci-fi original movie, Mongolian Death Worm.
They've made a movie about this premise, haven't they? I've seen this.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie.
Worms are seen as gigantic slug-like creatures with extendable jaws and an ability to climb wall. The worms in this movie don't have the ability to shock or spit acid, unlike the traditional legend says. And in the popular game, Ark Survival Evolved, as part of the Scorched Earth DLC, they add the Death Worm, who is a huge worm taller than a T-Rex with leg-like appendages by the mouth and is able to bite and claw. So, the background, it says type worm, first sighting 1,000 years ago, last sighting unknown, country Mongolia, Middle East, Asia, North Africa, population small, habitat underground deserts.
And the Gobi.
So, what are you thinking so far?
I'm primarily thinking it's probably all bullshit, but it's possible there might. I mean, obviously, it sounds like you couldn't have a worm-like creature out in that environment. I think that's been stated a couple of times now, so that sort of makes sense. It's too hot and dry, just dump me. I can imagine there'd be like some bigger snakes that you might, give rise to some sort of legend. I mean, I think the thing is, its characteristics are ones that you would
fabulous.
Yeah, I mean, I love the story. I love the fact that it can spit out acid and fire lightning from sort of quite a way, and then apparently comes out and explodes acid all over you, like some like.
Well, we've heard that
aliens. Once. So that's great, but it doesn't sound like any of the kind of like actual sightings or anything can record with this.
But what I would say to just to give people an idea, because not everyone might know how big the Gobi Desert is. It's 1.295 million square kilometres. So 1.295 million kilometres squared. So that's a big old area to be finding a 3-foot worm, isn't it? Yeah. Of mainly uninhabited areas.
Yeah, but if you're, if they kind of, if we're saying that there's been quite a few sightings by the local populace, then you think you'd knock up against one similar. I don't know. I mean, yeah. Look, I'll say this much: it'd be good fun if you did find one, wouldn't it?
Would it?
One in the eye for the establishment.
Oh,
stick
right.
Well, you just smoke it. Yeah, you'd be like, yeah, told you. What's this then? Eh?
So you'd like mainly to find it for some kind of political reason.
Twisted egotism. Like, yeah, you doubted me. Have a look at this.
Right.
Plus, we use to sort of power electric cars. Generate its own electricity. That could come in handy.
So I think that let's have a look at this. I think basically we've got the gist of what it is. I don't think there's going to be. I mean, a lot of different people have written about it.
In a film which looks like they just like the title Mongolian Death Worm and didn't really care about any of the substance.
But I mean, the Gobi. I mean, it says here Gobi Desert's vast region that spans a territory of 500,000 square miles of rough terrain, making the existence of undiscovered animal species very likely. And I'd agree with that. It's one
absolutely.
it's one of the most remote areas on Earth, isn't it?
Yeah, look, it's entirely possible that there are 5-foot undiscovered snake-like creatures knocking about, but ones that spit.
There are worms. There are worm. Oh, do you know what I might? So there's also, against what they were previously we've read, there are worm species that have been known to live in sand instead of soil, like the giant beach worm in Australia. So, moreover, the worms in the circulatory system a worm's circulatory system functions by absorbing oxygen through their skin and carrying it through their body, which allowed them to grow to large sizes. So it's less unlikely than, the naysayers have said, biologically. I mean, obviously the shooting lightning thing is unlikely biologically, but
that was less likely.
That a worm could live in hot sand and stuff. Well, they do. They already do. So I think that really, we've
looking at Wiki as well, and apparently in '83 they had a specimen of a Tartar sand boa, which is like a big snake, basically. They showed it to some locals who'd seen the Olgoi Korkoi, and they confirmed that was the animal that they called the Mongolian Death Worm. Now, obviously, that was just a particular set of people, so it doesn't mean the whole, But yeah, it's possible. Yeah. I mean, look, it's one of two things, isn't it? It feels to me it's possible that there's something that nobody's actually spotted other than the locals. It's possible that they've mistaken a snake for something else, and like hunter's tales. It's like the old fisherman's tales, isn't it? It's gotten a bit more embellished in the telling, where I think it's
unlikely that
spitting poison and.
Yeah, I think it's unlikely it exists with what they're, in the format which they're saying. I think that's unlikely. But then I'm also kind of slightly pushed in the other direction by people going, oh, well, I don't think it can exist, and here are the reasons why. And then you actually look at the reasons why, and you go, but similar animals do exist in those circumstances. So you've got a lot of people who are going, oh, well, I reckon it's rubbish. And that's fair enough. You can think that. But then when they try and put kind of science behind it, then you look and their science is completely bullshit. Then I'm more on the side of the locals at that point, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I'm kind of put off by that kind of stuff.
You know me, I'm more than happy to support some unsubstantiated rumours if you can make a bit of profit out of it. So if they want to set up a theme park for Mongolian Death Worms or whatever, get tourists involved, I'd be well up for it.
Well, and on the original version of the computer game theme park, the most popular ride was always the worm ride.
There you go.
And you just make loads of money on those. So, yeah, exactly. So just set up loads of them.
Like one-way Mongolian
one-way system.
Maybe,
yeah, exactly.
Mongolian barbecue.
Do some wrestling, Mongolian wrestling.
Nice.
Beautiful. Have some Genghis Khan themed stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean that was huge back in the day. The old
well, apparently
horde.
Isn't something like 1 in 10 people in the world meant to be his ancestor?
Got some genetic relation to Genghis Khan
because he got around so much.
He certainly did. Yeah.
So Neil, let's have a little go through our system. So.
I reckon that was why the horde was so successful, because they had, Mongolian death worms, train them up and get them to attack their enemies.
Flung them into cities.
Mobile archery, yeah. Nobody could withstand. That was the secret sauce.
They use it, so they tipped the arrows in the Mongolian death worm venom.
Nice. So then you had electrical arrows as well.
Maybe that was it. They just fired electricity. They had them like over their shoulders, like bazookas.
The producers on that film should have been taking notes from this. Much better ideas.
Well,
Genghis Khan involved.
I would imagine that with the name of that film's probably already copyright's probably already gone on it, so we can always do a film called The Mongolian Death Worm.
Yeah, I'm Kickstarter with a pitch.
Oh, Neil, and it's always interesting, these cryptozoology ones. So, Neil, you can go first with spookiness.
Nothing intrinsically spooky about the. This is one of the things with urban legends can cut across different things, but with the old cryptids, they're not necessarily particularly spooky. The idea that something could creep out of the desert and explode bile on you, or you sort of like start melting your face off. I imagine it'd be like something out of the end of that Indiana Jones first movie. I suppose that's kind of spooky, but inherently it's not a particularly spooky tale. So just because of the spitting out electricity and acid, I'm going to give that a 3. But
3, okay. I think seeing one, if you did, would be quite spooky. But if it's got just a mouth which is a ring of fangs on the front and back, like some of those, the creatures that you see from like really deep undersea, and or like you see a close up of a leech's mouth or something. They're always quite spooky. They're always quite spooky, aren't they? Or like the vampires.
Or the really, really heavily magnified ones where you see something
So they're always a bit spooky. I don't know, I guess, if they pop up suddenly out of the ground, then that'd be like, ugh. So, there's nothing supernatural about them. I guess, if one did turn up, it'd probably, shit you up quite a lot. Not for kind of, it would frighten you, not for reasons of the, other planes of existence, but for reasons that it would be quite a scary thing to see, I reckon.
Electrical sphincter is chasing after you.
Electrical teeth sphincter. So I'm going to give it a 5. So believability, I'll go first for this one. Is there a worm that shoots electricity? But I don't think the electricity stuff's right. Spitting out some kind of poison or acid, animals do that, so that is realistic. I think, that is something that happens in the animal kingdom. And I know electricity does with electric eels, but, water helps with that because it conducts it. But do I believe that there could be an unknown creature in the Gobi Desert which hasn't been found yet and which locals have said, yeah, we've seen it, but we don't believe exists because Western scientists who have spent 2 weeks in the 500,000 square miles of the Gobi Desert haven't managed to find it. It's possible. It's very, it's possible whether it is what they say or it's a new type of snake. There's probably something there that explains it. It's more believable than the Loch Ness Monster or something, put it that way. Yeah. So I'm giving it, it's not that big. I'm going to give it a 7 for believability. No.
Oh, wow. No, I can't go that high.
I'm not asking you to.
Well, you're all right.
Go your own, Matt.
Yeah, there you go. So, I think it's not, there's not loads of inherently unbelievable things in this. As you say, the electricity thing, I'm not so sightings of some kind of creature that's out there, possibly, there's the fact that a load of locals have seen it. Having said that, there's all sorts of folklore tales about all sorts of things having been seen at one time or another that can persist. I don't think that necessarily gives it massive credence, but at the same time, it's not like massively outlandish, a lot of the details. I don't necessarily, some sort of 5-foot worm type thing that they haven't found. I suppose it's possible, but given the lack of evidence, I'll give it a maximum. I'll give a 4 hit.
Very low. All right, now Reach, you can go first.
Yeah, I'm not imagining this has got particularly big reach, to be honest with you. Again, not surprising I hadn't heard of it. It does seem to have been going around for quite a while. It's the first sighting was 1,000 years ago. So obviously it's something that persists in Mongolia and presumably will carry on doing so. So it's something about the persistence of time. But I can't see it. It's just got a cool name, basically, Mongolian Death Worm. I think that's what's causing it to get movies made about it and things like that. And maybe that's all you need. I don't think the backstory's massively something that will get people.
That'd be under narrative, though, wouldn't it?
No, I know, but sometimes the backstory can help to sort of get it achieve more of a reach. So it's been around for quite a while, but it's probably not known that far around outside of Mongolia unless you're looking for it. So it could be another 4 for me.
4? Wow. So it's been around 1,000 years. So that's high scoring because of its reach through time. I've heard of it before. It's been talked about and in books and stuff. It's been known in the West for at least 100 years. The film Tremors is based on it. It's appeared in computer games. It's got a movie. I think it's pretty high. So I'm and considering how long it's been about, it's going to be an 8 for me. Narrative premise. So, this is where, because these aren't really stories per se, they're about a certain creature. It's always difficult to score the cryptids on this. I guess it's, and I'll probably be wrong, and you can probably read stuff, or there's probably stuff about some kind of creatures or worms that live under the Sahara Desert or something that are really deadly that I haven't heard of. But it seems fairly original. I mean, it's been around for ages. So it's got so clearly it's kind of got something about it. I'm going to go, the fact that it's been attributed with being able to shoot electricity kicks it up a notch for me. But not a huge amount to it, but there doesn't need to be, because it's more about something that might exist rather than a tale about whatever. So I'm just going to give it a 5, straight down the middle. Neil?
Yeah, this is probably one of the stronger ones for me. So I think this is kind of like its USP. So I think Mongolian Death Worm, that's a great name for a start off. That's what you want. They look kind of like pretty horrifying in some of the paintings and things that people see, like these, red sphincter-looking things with teeth all over the show, and spitting acid at you, firing electrical bolts at you, and then exploding bile at you. That's all good stuff. And you can imagine, that'd be a pretty good tale that you'd be telling around the campfire if you're in sort of like some nomadic region, And Uncle Ken Pass, well, Mongolian Death Worm had him. That's why there'll be electrical burns and then.
Unfortunately, the Death Worm got him.
Unusual.
Unfortunately, the Death Worm got him, so I had to marry all his wives.
I quite like the fact that they have. I didn't really make computer games and stuff like that, but the fact that it's. I mean, I think a lot of it sort of is kind of desert. But no, I quite like something like popping up out of the desert. It's one of those things like out of Dune or out of Tremors. I think that's quite a nice little sort of thing to hook a story onto. There's not loads of things you could do on this, but as Tremors showed, you could make a story out of that. So I'm going to give it a 6.
6, so that gives us an overall score of 42, right there in the middle of the bell curve.
No too bad.
No too bad at all. So, if you have ever encountered a Mongolian death worm, or know of someone who has, or you have any other...
Got a specimen. Maybe a baby one. Don't flush it down the toilet.
Yeah.
New York City, it's got to grow fierce and big.
Don't feed it after midnight.
Show it to science.
Don't hog it. You can't be too overprotective because they do need socialising. Then, please feel free to get in touch. Neil, what was that email address again?
Well, I believe, Chris, that would have been herb.legends.podcast@gmail.com.
Oh, that's right, buddy. Email in all of your legend needs. Cool. Well, that's it for this week. Hope you've enjoyed listening. We'll be back with another urban legend next week. I still haven't got a satisfactory outro hook, but maybe for series 3, eh?
Some of these things take time. You've got to go with where the muse takes you. I'll say as well in terms of email, you know, if you've got any good crypto currency scams you want us to buy into, happy to take a look at that.
I was looking through my
junk. Any NFTs you want to shift on us, we'll peruse that.
I was looking through my junk folder the other day, and I'd actually got one of the I thought they'd probably stopped, but clearly not. It was like one of the scams of like this.
Get you buy into some.
No, this woman is the richest woman in Africa, but she needs a bank account to be able to. Yeah, I got one of them.
I was like, wow. Call them those. It was a 417 emails or something. Yeah, it was the Nigerian penal code for fraud or something. Yeah.
Yes, I got one of those. So it's nice to see they're still going.
I got my first one of those in the 90s.
Yeah, so did I. Yeah, and even then I knew it was a scam. It's weird that they've done really well out of it. It's funny how gullible people are.
Well, I was reading about this. We might have discussed this previously, actually, but apparently one of the techniques is to have a little bit of believability, but be poorly enough written and all the rest of it that you self-select out. Anyone smart enough to see it as a scam. Now, this is part of the technique, because you don't want to waste time with somebody who's going to question it or be sceptical. So actually, that actually works to the favour. Anyone who reads that and then still wants to know more, you pretty much know you're dealing with somebody who's a bit gullible and probably not terribly well educated, and maybe need a bit of hope in their life. So you've got a
which is weird, isn't it? Because yourself, but they're also people are going to have the least to steal. So it's just a numbers game, isn't it?
Maybe not. Who knows? You still
could be a member of the average British aristocracy, couldn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Fantastic.
You think you're going to believe such tales as, well, no, I had a gland removed during the war. You think we're really thick, or you're really thick to think believing what we'd be thick enough to believe.
Yeah. And on that beautifully crafted
horror of inbreeding
point about the dangers of inbreeding, I'll say goodbye to me, Chris. Goodbye.
Yeah.